All right, let's do it. Let's break down the national championship. Indiana's a win away from a fairy tale national title, but Miami's at home. Can they get a little bit of home field chaos and nasty defense to crash the party and flip what we think is an easy script to write tonight? Now, Indiana's favored to win. Signetti has had his thoughts about that 8.5-point spread. It's worked its way down to 7.5.
So I think the 8.5-point spread's a setup.
Indiana looks to be the more complete, more efficient team. They have the better quarterback. They have the cleaner overall profile. And even though Miami is dangerous and effectively playing at home, I think their case rests on defense and home field. And I really think that Indiana is going to win for 3 reasons. First of which being they play mistake-free football. Fernando Mendoza has been the best, most consistent quarterback in the country this year. He drives a very balanced attack that can beat you on the ground, beat you through the air at a really high level. And the Hoosiers are one of the least penalized teams in all of college football. So if Miami were to win a game like this tonight, they would have to force Indiana to play a brand of football that they just don't play, which is tons of mistakes, lots of penalties. And I think it makes it hard whenever you're playing an opponent that doesn't give you free possessions, that doesn't give you an easy field position. So that's first and foremost. Second of which, Indiana doesn't have an obvious weakness front to back. They've dominated all season with a sturdy line of scrimmage, explosive, reliable receivers, and a defense that's anchored by some standout players that are going to make a difference on Sundays. So even the elite teams, the Alabamas, maybe not elite, but the top teams of the sport, like the teams in the college football playoff, the Alabamas, the Oregons, they couldn't find a clear soft spot against this team. And so I don't know if there's a weakness in Indiana's game on offense, defense, or special teams. So that makes it difficult already. But this is a disruptive, disciplined defense that is playing against a quarterback that has made mistakes in Carson Beck. I think that Indiana is going to force Miami into quite a bit of mistakes tonight. Their defense has intercepted a pass in 12 of the last 15 games. They've set the tone in playoff games early and often. We've seen the crazy stat about how many drives they've started the season or started a game with a pick six or with an interception. And so this is the exact type of opportunistic unit that I think can reinfect Carson Beck. He looks like he maybe turned a corner a little bit. This is the type of defense that can reinfect him with the turnover issues if he's forced to press it to keep up in this game. Okay. Now, the counter argument, it's not going to be that easy. I think we all think it's going to be that easy. It's not going to be that easy. The counter argument for Miami, okay, you got to look back to that Penn State game earlier in the year. I think if you point to the Penn State game as proof that Indiana can be dragged into an ugly, low-scoring fight by a physical defense, you have something there. That's the kind of game that Miami has to play. Penn State's front knocked Indiana off schedule. They compressed the game, and they showed a blueprint for Miami. I think the Hurricanes probably watched that game 1,000 times, right? Heavy pressure, tight coverage. Force Mendoza to be patient. Wait for a key mistake or two, and it's got to be a low-scoring affair. Now, Miami has a top-tier defense. We know that, and they have shown up at the perfect time. They've held their last 3 playoff opponents to, 44 total points. They forced multiple turnovers during this run. You got a Mesidor, a Bain Jr., playmakers like Keontae Scott. Miami is the kind of unit that can pressure Mendoza and possibly score on defense. They have to have a special teams play, a pick six. They have to have some sort of unit helping them score in some way, okay, other than the offense. So the pass rush is elite. The defense is ferocious. The run defense can choke Indiana's balance. They got to stop the run. They rank them on the best teams nationally in rushing success rate allowed. And if they can limit explosive runs, make it 3rd and 6, 3rd and 5, it's going to be difficult to put Indiana in like a 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10 consistently. But if you can make this a 3rd and 6, make it to where your crowd can get behind you, control the early downs, make Indiana one-dimensional, it can recreate a grinded-out game that we saw in that Penn State one where it was a lower-scoring script, and it can give Indiana more resistance against strong defenses. We've seen it against Iowa. We've seen it against Ohio State. I think the Penn State game can tell us something. Okay? But I got Indiana. Indiana's already dismantled in Alabama and Oregon on major national stages. Travel and environment isn't going to bother them. It's not going to rattle them by any means. They are exceptionally clean in penalties and turnovers, which is the exact trait that blunts crowd noise and it stops emotional swings. They're level-headed. They're experienced now. A loud stadium matters less when the road team doesn't beat itself, and Indiana isn't going to beat itself. You talk about how Miami's pass rush is elite, and Indiana counters it. They counter it with one of the nation's best offensive lines. Carter Smith is elite. The offense can run effectively. They can throw on schedule. They avoid obvious passing downs. You know, as much as I said Miami needs to force them into 3rd and 6, like, Indiana isn't going to get itself in those moments. If there's any team that can't be beat by an elite pass rush, it's Indiana. Miami's defense has thrived when opponents are shaky, mistake-prone, and you're playing the Heisman Trophy winner and a receiving core that doesn't drop the ball. The margin for error that Miami is going to be able to play with, like, Indiana's not going to beat itself, okay? The run defense metrics are excellent for Miami, but Indiana is not a one-note run-heavy team. They are equally comfortable throwing on first down. I'm curious to see if Miami overcommits in the box and what Indiana is able to do to dissect them from there. So, I think Indiana rolls to the national title tonight. My lean would be covering the 7.5-point spread. I think the total stays under. It's going to be a gritty defensive battle. I think that if I were to have a play on this one, it would be combining Indiana money line with Mendoza throwing 2 touchdowns. You combine those, it hovers right around even money. I'm pretty confident in that tonight. If you like Miami, you've got to like their rushing over as well. They're able to control clock on offense. I don't really see it. I think Miami fights hard. I think it's going to be a good game. Indiana pulls away late, and they win this one by a score of, let's go 24-14. 24-14. I got Indiana tonight with the poise, the balance, and the turnover margin where it's going to be proven to be too much down the stretch.